Her name is Mary Anebo. She's been convicted of assaulting this woman, Susan Furicchio, an education reporter for the Washington Times.
The principal, her staff, and a group of students forcibly dragged her down the hall of the school and threw her out the door.
One 28-year-old white female can sneak into my school, steal from me, and said specifically, "You black people are not going to talk to me like that. I'm going to shut that school down."
I accept my disability. It's a fact. I cannot hide it, and I don't want to hide it. But I don't want to be judged as a disabled person. I want to be judged as a singer.
If you had to choose between being an able-bodied person who didn't have the ability to sing as you do, and a disabled person with your marvelous talent, what would the choice?
I stay like I am.
The bracelet is really a transmitter, and it's being sold as a way to monitor and restrict the movement of criminal offenders, confining them at home instead of in jail.
In fact, it's entirely possible for someone on home detention to commit a whole series of violent crimes without their bracelet ever setting off an alarm.
I don't believe it would be much of a deterrent to anyone who is intent on committing crimes.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
A company most people never heard of is changing the way we fight cancer and kidney failure. By inducing the body to produce blood cells, chemotherapy and anemia patients are gaining new strength. Helping to grow blood cells helped Amgen become the world's largest biotech company. Where do you learn about companies with such pioneering spirit? Exactly. NASDAQ.com.
Welcome to Dollar.
I trust you have my convertible.
With such low rates right at the airport, renting from Dollar on vacation can make anyone seem intelligent and sensible, with a few notable exceptions.
Oh boy.
And right now at Dollar, you can rent a Dodge Neon for just $27.99 a day. Dollar Rent-A-Car. Dollar. Makes sense.
Here, honey, drink your orange juice. There you go.
Finally, in health news, the American Cancer Society reports that along with a healthy diet, drinking more Florida orange juice may actually reduce your risk of some cancers. Hey, how about that? Well, that's news up to the minute. Updates on the quarter hour. It's now 23 minutes past.
Your purchase of Florida orange juice makes possible a donation to the American Cancer Society.
Jessica Fletcher is back.
It can't be. I'm afraid so.
In an all-new world premiere event.
You may be in danger. Wouldn't be the first time.
Angela Lansbury in a Murder, She Wrote movie, CBS tonight.
Next week, the Washington, D.C. School Board must decide whether or not to expel not a troublemaking student, but an entire school because of its unruly principal. A principal a D.C. court has already found guilty of assault and theft. In normal circumstances, a principal would be fired, replaced, and life would go on. But this principal seems to be beyond reach, because the school in question is a charter school, one of almost 800 in the country. Most of them run smoothly. Even though they were set up with public money, charter schools are often accountable to virtually no one. That was the case with the Marcus Garvey School in Washington, established to try to shore up D.C.'s crumbling school system. The question facing the city's Board of Education is, can it allow a school to continue, no matter how effective some claim it to be, when the principal of that school has become a law unto herself? Her name is Mary Anebo. She's been convicted of assaulting this woman, Susan Furicchio, an education reporter for the Washington Times, an incident that became both an educational and racial cause célèbre in the nation's capital.
One 28-year-old white female can sneak into my school, steal from me, go out and cry, "She hurt me." And look what happens.
What happened after the Times played the story on its front page were rallies of support for Anibal. The constant theme was white racism.
Overheard Susan Ferrecchio shout racial epithets to my students and said specifically, "You black people are not going to talk to me like that. I'm going to shut that school down."
Though everyone seems to have an opinion about what happened that day, the two people who really know aren't talking.
We're not going to have any interviews right now. Thank you.
We had to talk with their lawyers. Washington Times attorney Henry Hoberman says that Ferrecchio was writing a progress report on the school. She tried to phone the principal, but the phones were broken, so she just turned up.
She announced herself as a reporter for the Washington Times, asked to see the principal, was provided with a student to escort her to the principal's office.
Hoberman says that Ferrecchio asked the student a few questions and took some notes.
The principal arrived, became belligerent, demanded her notebook, took her notebook forcibly from her, and then the principal, her staff, and a group of students punched, kicked, beat, pummeled, pulled her hair, and forcibly dragged her down the hall of the school and threw her out the door.
He says that Ferrecchio was also told to, quote, "Get your white ass out of here." When Ferrecchio returned to the school with police and a Times photographer, another melee ensued. Police officers and the photographer were attacked. By the end of the day, Anibal and 3 other staff members faced various charges of assault and theft of the reporter's notebook. But Anibal's attorney, Veronis Holt, says the principal didn't assault anybody. She was simply protecting her school.
All the attack is on the people at the school and what they've done, but you got to remember, they're minding their own business. Susan Ferrecchio and later the police and the photographer, they're the interlopers.
Holt says that Ferrecchio lied about the phones not working, showed up unannounced, and she claims that Ferrecchio was the thief, that she stole a notebook from the school's office and proceeded to interview a student without permission.
Once Dr. Anibal came downstairs and told her to leave her school, what was she supposed to do? Leave her school.
And who said, "Get your white ass out of here"?
I don't know who she thinks said that, okay? The only person who says that was ever said is Susan Ferrecchio.
Holt says Susan Ferrecchio concocted her story and the racist media bought it.
We need to stop trying to pretend that we don't have racial problems in America. We need to stop trying to pretend that, for example, this incident here has not divided down a straight racial line.
The skirmish over a notebook resulted in one of the longest misdemeanor trials in Washington history and concluded with Anibal's conviction of assault and theft. She was given probation. She says she was set up.
If you're black in white America, you're in bad, bad shape.
That's right.
As far as the criminal justice is concerned. But let me just say this. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And I'm fat.
And it ain't over because that lady continues to run the school. And there's little anyone can do because under its charter, the Marcus Garvey principal can do just about anything she wants. And Don Reeves, president of the D.C. School Board, can't lay a glove on her. All he can do is close the school down.
There's a school out there with people that are, committing criminal acts, and nobody knows quite exactly how to approach the thing other than to wipe the whole school out altogether.
Can the school board say, okay, this school must remove its principal?
No. The charter schools board of trustees has exclusive authority over personnel issues in the school. All we can do is suggest or recommend that they do that.
But there's little chance they will, for it was Mary Anibal who appointed the board, and the chairman of the board is her own brother, Richard Duckett, and he says she stays as principal.
And their response has been that they are going to retain the principal and staff in their positions without meting out any discipline.
To allow the school to continue under Anibal would emphasize the D.C. Board of Education's weakness. To close the school down would further exacerbate deteriorating race relations in Washington. Anebo seems to hold all the cards. Had Dr. Anebo said, look, I didn't know who this woman was. My guard was down. I lost it. I lost my cool. Let's go back to teaching kids.
I think people need to hear that from Dr. Anebo.
She's not said anything like that.
Well,
in fact, the opposite. She is defiant.
Right.
I've spent 35, nearly 40 of my 55 years in service to children.
The school came into existence a year ago when Mary Anebo, a PhD from Howard University, applied to the school board to start her own charter school to be aimed at young black men. School board member Jay Silberman says that he felt pressure from black board members to approve the school, even though he had doubts about Anebo.
I had seen this individual at a number of meetings being very brash, very aggressive, very confrontational. So, you know, frankly, months later when this incident occurred, it was not a surprise to me.
When you say brash and confrontational, aggressive, within a racial context?
Often, yes.
The board didn't know or didn't care that Anebo had a checkered past. She defaulted on business loans from the D.C. government and had a past history of brushes with the law, including running an illegal daycare center and a previous charge of assaulting and slashing a process server. That charge was dropped.
The board doesn't approve, disapprove, review staff, period, at all, under this law. The teachers can be anybody they choose. The law does not require, nor does it give any qualitative standard to measure that any applicant have a clear police record of felonies, misdemeanors, or anything else.
Which is why Anebo was able to create her own curriculum, which emphasizes black history, have her brother as chairman of the board, her niece as a secretary, and her nephew as a maintenance man, even though he was a convicted armed robber, carjacker, and was charged with drug dealing. As a charter school, that's nobody's business, even though it's funded by taxpayers. The current budget is over $500,000 a year. Essentially, as this school begins its second year, you really don't know anything about it. You don't know if they're fiscally responsible. You don't know if the teachers are qualified. You have no idea what kind of education these kids are getting.
That's true. And ultimately, under this law, it's really up to parents to say, I like what I'm getting, or I don't like what I'm getting, and that would be it.
And those parents like what they're getting. Enrollment at the school has almost tripled since the incident. Parents like Marshall Phillips, Tanya Robertson, and Wanda Woodland say their children are excelling.
You have to be able to understand and reach a child. You have to have that patience, and that's what Dr. Anebo and her school staff have the ability to do.
The story took Washington by storm. The op-ed pages, the journals of opinion, all had something to say. Some columnists wondered if Anebo was teaching hate.
It seems as though when you teach black children black history about themselves, people seem to, they believe that you're teaching hate.
If we were so busy trying to have a racial thing going on in there, my son would not be excelling academically.
Garvey student Michael Petty agrees.
When I was in the 10th grade at my other high school, they would have me reading on a 3rd grade level. It was too easy. Now, I found something that's challenging for me. I really like to do it, and the school has really helped me a lot.
Not only do the students and parents support Anebo, they believe that she is a victim of Susan Ferricchio's lies.
She saw a story, and she went and invented this whole beating and everything like that, and her paper and everybody else followed suit.
Are you suggesting that there's some kind of conspiracy out there to get this school, to put this school out of business?
Here's someone that, once again, that has not had a bruise nor a scar on them, not reported to any kind of emergency room. And all of a sudden, everybody has gotten up into an uproar.
They saw Dr. Anebo, her dreadlocks, heavy set. Boy, she looked like a big mean mama. She must have beat that poor little, and I'll repeat like a lot of the media said, the 110-pound Ferricchio.
This story played every single day for about 9 days, a story about a notebook. And why did it do that? Because the children, the people at the school were black. Why, when somebody is doing something this wonderful for black youth in our community, why is the media trying to destroy them?
Every wild fantasy that they manufacture about racism and conspiracy has been ventilated fully in open court under oath. And a judge found that Susan Ferricchio was telling the truth and Dr. Anibo was not.
Hoberman says the racism argument just doesn't hold up because Ferricchio's previous stories about the school were positive, and most of the key players in the case against Anibo were black. But to the Marcus Garvey parents, the incident is secondary to their first concern, choice. They chose the school, and they want Anibo to run it.
Parents, along with everybody else connected with this situation, has to realize the old adage that no one is above the law. And if the Board of Trustees feels that that's the administration that they want to see continue, then they have to find some other way of funding that operation. It cannot be done on the public's dollar.
You're adamant on that?
Yes.
Since she has become such a lightning rod in this, maybe the best thing to do for the survival of the school is to step aside.
That's a policy that I hear coming from the people who want the school to go away. The parents, everybody else who's been in the school, agrees. No Dr. Anibo, no school.
It could be no school, even though the Marcus Garvey Board of Trustees now says it will suspend Dr. Anibo for 30 days without pay. Don Reeves, the president of the D.C. Board of Education, told us that just wasn't good enough, that there were other issues about Marcus Garvey that still troubled him. The board will go ahead and decide this week whether or not to close the school down.
We were on vacation.
Oh, your sunglasses!
When we realized we were sitting on a gold mine.
Rubber sunglasses.
Too bad none of the stores saw it that way.
So, any more bright ideas?
Actually, yes.
I can see clear.
Our own website. And before we knew it, we were selling shades to everyone under the sun.
Open a storefront on the internet with the most powerful network in the world.
After years of perfecting silence, we're ready to make some noise. The future of Lexus is here. Fasten your seatbelt.
We have a deal. Today, the best opportunities are global, and so are we.
We see a huge market developing here.
The Equitable, a strong and trusted partner in the U.S.
This combination means new growth for both partners.
AXA, a global powerhouse in 50 countries with more than $500 billion under management.
Here, have a look at the future.
AXA and Equitable. Global reach from a trusted friend. Equitable is a member of the Global AXA Group.
Ah, the good old days of supermarket shopping. When nothing stood between you and your next meal. Nothing. But today, there are materials that help lock out harmful contaminants and reduce spoilage, keeping us safe and the food we eat fresh. Plastics make it possible. So now, the rest is history.
It's the greatest reunion in TV history. Bob Newhart and Judd Hirsch join the cast of Taxi, Newhart, and more in a show that's
freaky.
George and Leo, CBS Monday.
Tuesday, one U.S. attorney must stop the Russian mafia.
I can protect you and your family.
And keep a witness alive. David Caruso is Michael Hayes. Then, can a private investigator keep an ex-con from stealing again?
I got no choices. You got me.
Danny Aiello is Della Ventura after Michael Hayes, CBS Tuesday.
You've probably never heard of Thomas Kwastoff, but I'm willing to bet that after seeing and hearing him, you won't forget him. For most singers, there is a moment of dread when they have to walk out on stage at the beginning of a performance. Thomas Kwastoff is a singer who needs more courage than most. Thomas Kwastoff was about to give his first major performance at the Barbican Theatre in London. And in spite of the applause which greeted him, he knows that when people see him for the first time, they are shocked by his appearance.
One of my first concerts were in Braunschweig. It's a little city in the north of Germany. And we go in the church, and the conductor come to my father. "Oh, it's very nice that you sing here." And my father, "Sorry, it's not me, it's my son." And the conductor looks down, really like, "Oof." And then I start to sing, and he really loses his stick. It was really like, he was shocked.
He dropped the baton?
Absolutely. He was really like, "What's that?"
What that was this.
E poi col capitale abbiam poi che alcun non sa, e poi col capitale abbiam poi che alcun non sa.
Kwastoff's voice is exceptional by any standards. He can sing from high baritone to bass, and that big sound seems to come effortlessly from his small body.
I accept my disability, it's a fact. I cannot hide it, and I don't want to hide it. But I don't want to be judged as a disabled person. I want to be judged as a singer. And I think my level is high enough that I have the right to be judged like this.
Thomas Kwastoff was born near Hanover, Germany in 1959, one of the first victims of the drug thalidomide, which his mother had taken during pregnancy to combat morning sickness. Unknown to doctors at that time, thalidomide had terrible side effects, causing physical deformities in the unborn child. Believing that their son would never be able to lead a normal life, his parents sent him to an institution for the disabled.
My first sleeping room, I don't forget what was, I think, together with 10, 12 children. And they are not only physical handicapped, some are brain handicapped also, so they cry in the night, and it was a hard experience, but on the other side, now I say it was very good for me, because I try to enjoy every day, because I know how hard life really can be. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thomas Kwastoff, hello. Hello, hello.
Kwastoff was eventually allowed to go to a regular school, and when his classmates played soccer in their free time, he took up singing. But when he tried to win a place at the local music school, Kwastoff was turned down. Students who wanted to study singing were also required to learn a musical instrument, and no matter how promising the voice, no exception could be made for a boy with no arms. So Kwastoff reluctantly decided to study law.
You know, it's very, very hard. If you know and if you feel inside yourself, I am an artist and I want to be an artist, and then to have this dry stuff.
The law?
Oh boy. It was really a hard time.
You don't think you would have made a good lawyer?
Maybe I would be the first singing lawyer. I don't know. No, I really hate it. It was really a hard time. I tried to manage it, but after 3 years I said, no, it's not possible.
So Kwastoff took private singing lessons, and to pay for them, he found a job.
Es ist 13 Uhr, NDR Radio Niedersachsen, aktuell mit Thomas Kwastoff.
Die Schlagzeilen. Kali Kumpel in Bischof.
He worked as an announcer for a local radio station, doing everything from hosting music programs to reading the news and weather reports.
Heute Nachmittag Auflockerungen, Temperaturen zwischen 18 und 22 Grad.
Those singing lessons paid off, Kwastov is now regarded by music critics as one of the finest baritones of his generation. He gave up that day job some time ago and gives about 80 concerts a year in Germany and around the world.
You have an entourage that goes with you?
A what?
An entourage.
What is that?
Entourage in German is...
Eine Gruppe, die mitkommt.
A group? I have my groupies. No, I'm sorry. You maybe there's a mistake. I'm not Mick Jagger. It's no. My mother is my groupie.
When Kwastov's on the road, his mother, Brigitte, often accompanies him.
Was there ever a point when she tried to help you too much?
Sure. Till now. I get crazy when my parents visit me at home. And my mother said, come on, I do this. And my father, what is this for a piece of paper? I must do this. And I must do this. And I said, please, sit down, relax, and let me quiet here in my home. And yes, but I think it's difficult, you know. I stay long at home.
She understands, even though she doesn't speak English.
Yes.
She understands what you're saying.
She exactly what I say.
You said you were one of the first, and you were 59. And your mother had no idea about thalidomide then. What did she think when you were born?
Ja, ich war unendlich traurig und geschockt.
She was shocked and very, very, very sad.
Leben ist zu Ende.
She thought the life is over. She has had a very good doctor. My mother was really completely depressed. And the professor said, you cannot know now. Maybe you will have a lot of fun in the future with this disabled guy. And my mother sits very often here and that he was right.
She's having a lot of fun with this disabled guy.
Now, yes, yeah. Yeah, because she likes to travel, you know.
Kwastov knows that his success has meant much more to his mother than a chance to travel. She sits through all of his rehearsals and performances with something that goes beyond a mother's pride.
Nobody who has healthy children can imagine what that means for a mother to live 37 years to feel guilty. And I think the best present I could give to my mother is to show her, Mother, I'm able to work successfully. I'm able to live alone. I have the possibility to manage my life. I think this is a very important thing.
In his apartment in Hanover, Kwastov usually looks after himself. Sometimes he gets a little help from one of his music students. The boy who was turned down by a music school because he couldn't play a musical instrument is now a professor of music who gives master classes in his home.
Why do I do this?
Because if you feel comfortable, you make a little bit like relaxing your voice. It's a little bit like I hope I show them how wonderful this profession is. Maybe the nicest profession in the world. Sorry for your profession, but I think singing is really the most natural kind of expression you can have. Everybody can imagine, everybody in the world can imagine singing. Everybody.
In Italia, 640,
You have such an expressive face on the stage. I mean, you can sense your joy when you're singing. You can sense that happiness when you sing.
I hope so. I never train it in front of a mirror, you can be sure. Never. It comes out of myself.
Kwastov often sings operatic arias like this one from Don Giovanni in his concerts. But for obvious reasons, he has never performed in an opera. The only role he was offered was that of the dwarf in Verdi's Rigoletto. He turned it down.
I think that my disability would be too much in the foreground. If you act, everybody look, oh, how he walks. And I think it's very important to have this kind of singing intelligence, to know exactly what is good for your voice, what is good for your career, and what not.
Bye-bye, and thank you very much.
Cheers.
Kwastov may not have the physique of an opera singer, but he admits that he sometimes has the temperament of one.
If something goes wrong, sometimes I can really get furious, very. And I hate myself in this moment. No, not in this moment because I don't recognize, but after that I hate myself. And I'm working on it. But you know, I have hopefully a long life to correct my personality in the bad facts. I really want to be liked.
Kwastov says he also wants to be loved, and he has an eye for pretty women. What has so far prevented him from having a permanent relationship, he says, is not his disability, but the demands of his career.
And at the moment, I'm in the situation where I said it's better to be alone and happy than to have a relationship and have problems.
Would you like to have both?
Sure. Who not?
Thomas Kwastov says he considers himself to have been born blessed. Blessed to have made it to the top in a profession where he knows it helps to be good-looking. Blessed with a loving family, and above all, blessed with the gift of music.
It was a dream 10, 15 years ago. And now it's my normal life. Sometimes it's crazy to realize.
If you had to choose between being an able-bodied person who didn't have the ability to sing as you do, and a disabled person with your marvelous talent, what would the choice
I stay like I am. I would stay like I am.
What would it be like to be desired, to have all eyes upon you, envious, wanting, wishing for the pleasure of your company, knowing that the memory of your time together would always bring a smile to the lips you so recently touched? Oh, to be a steak. Oh.
Beef, it's what you want.
What do I want? I want to know I'm headed in the right direction. I want to keep my options open. I do want to take care of my family. I want to give something back. I want to learn, find what's right for me, be ready for anything, make the right choices. I want to find the people who can get me there.
American Express Financial Advisors can help you decide what you want to do and how to get there.
I want to say I made a difference. I want to do more.
Francesco Lafabula has just created the little black dress that will change everything. The magazines have created a frenzy, and you have sworn that your stores will be the first to carry it. Enter UPS. Customs gets cleared electronically. The global network kicks in. Also that at the same time, on the same day, the dresses arrive from Europe to each of your stores nationwide. Success is a beautiful thing.
Nice dress.
UPS, moving at the speed of business.
60 Minutes, a CBS News magazine, will continue.
How far will a reporter go?
Angels have just descended.
To prove angels are a hoax, William Devane joins an all-new Touched by an Angel Then, Jessica Fletcher is back.
It can't be. I'm afraid so.
In an all-new world premiere event.
You may be in danger.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Angela Lansbury in a Murder, She Wrote movie, CBS tonight.
A look at the Fame game, from the fans to the festivities, and gardening with Martha Stewart, plus John Travolta and Billy Joel and your latest weather.
Join us this week
On This Morning.
The address is CBS. Welcome home.
Nick, there is still one missile left. You must get to it before the others do.
It's a 200-horsepower engine, too audacious to be kept secret. It's advanced climate control, engineered to keep you cool, no matter what kind of pressure you're under.
Son's birthday.
It's the TL from Acura. The true definition of luxury. Yours.
Speed is an important aspect of mobile's friendly serve.
Speed is important because it's what the customer wants.
I like to pay at the pump. It's quick, it's easy, and I can be back on the road in no time.
Basically, our job is to get customers in and out fast.
I'm just in here, I'm out of here.
You can't even get burgers and fries this fast.
And the last place you want to see a traffic jam is at a gas station.
That's mobile friendly serve.
How can we help you?
How are you helping clean up our shoreline of shame? Watch 11 News tomorrow at 10.
What do a pair of New Jersey teenagers charged with murdering their baby have in common with reputed mob boss Vincent Gigante? Well, aside from the fact that they both had brushes with the law, at one time or another, they both worn the same bracelet. We're not talking about fashion accessories here. We're talking about electronic ankle bracelets, the hottest trend in the corrections industry and technology's answer to overcrowded prisons and understaffed parole and probation departments. The device was originally invented so farmers could keep track of their cows. Now it's being used by law enforcement agencies all across the country to keep track of more than 80,000 criminals. The big question is, does it work?
What we're going to do now is put the anklet on your leg.
The bracelet is really a transmitter about the size of a beeper that sends out a signal notifying law enforcement every time someone wearing the ankle bracelet gets more than 150 feet from an electronic device attached to his home telephone. It's called home detention, and it's being sold as a way to monitor and restrict the movement of criminal offenders, confining them at home instead of in jail. David Hunter is the one doing most of the selling.
It is the most secure sanction for people who serve their time in the community that you can find. There is nothing that you can do to these people that would make it any more secure unless you put them all in prison.
Hunter is president of BI Incorporated, which manufactures 70% of all the home detention monitors currently in use in the United States. And he has contracts with 1,300 different jurisdictions to keep track of 14,000 criminal offenders from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. And with public pressure mounting to come up with less expensive alternatives to building more and more prisons, BI is marketing home detention as a low-cost solution.
You could take these people out of those expensive, overcrowded, dangerous facilities and incarcerate them in their own homes. There are a bunch of positive things that begin to happen. One, they can work for a living. And instead of being a ward of society, they can actually pay taxes. They can pay restitution to their victims. And in many, many cases, they pay for the privilege of being on home arrest.
And in fact, that's what's happening in Denver, Colorado, where people like David Busby, who was convicted of drunk driving, pays the city about $10 a day for the privilege of wearing the bracelet instead of costing the city money sitting in jail.
Hi, guys. How was your day at school?
Like most people on home detention, he's allowed to leave home during the day to go to work or attend classes or counseling sessions. But he has to be home at 6 p.m. and remain there the rest of the night. If he's late or he leaves, the electronic device on his telephone will send a signal to BI headquarters in Boulder, which notifies the authorities in Denver that he's violated the conditions of his release and is subject to rearrest. That's the way it's supposed to work, but the reality is sometimes very different. Norm Early used to be the district attorney in Denver, and he thinks the public is being sold a bill of goods.
It's not home arrest, it's not home detention, it's not tracking, and it's not home monitoring.
Well, if it isn't any of those things, what is it?
What it is an ability to know if a person's within a certain confines during a specified period of time, and that's it.
Early says people think the system can do all sorts of things that it can't do.
Such as?
Such as tracking down offenders immediately, being able to determine where offenders are once they leave their homes. Sometimes people believe that these people are confined to their homes on a 24-hour basis, which is very rarely the case.
You can't track them?
No, these are not tracking devices, and if an individual absconds from a program, there's no way that a law enforcement officer or the person who runs the program for a governmental agency can determine where they are.
In fact, you don't have to abscond from the program for authorities not to know where you are. It's entirely possible for someone on home detention to commit a whole series of violent crimes without their bracelet ever setting off an alarm. Take the case of convicted rapist Brian Soule, who a judge released on home detention while he was awaiting trial for armed robbery. Soule had been supervised by Trina Wagner, who owns a tiny home detention company called Monitoring Services Incorporated in Prince George's County, Maryland. Good client?
Did everything he was supposed to do on the program, reported in when he was supposed to, kept in constant contact with me. I didn't have a problem with him, no.
Never violated the terms of his home detention?
No.
But while Soule was wearing the bracelet, checking in with Trina Wagner, and going home every night like he was supposed to, by day, when he was allowed out to go to work, police say he managed to find time to commit a brutal series of rapes, assaults, and robberies, one of which took place literally a few minutes after he left Trina Wagner's office. Obviously, this bracelet was not much of a deterrent to Mr. Soule.
I don't believe it would be much of a deterrent to anyone who is intent on committing crimes.
It certainly wasn't a deterrent to Mark Ambrose, who robbed a Connecticut jewelry store and shot 2 people in the head while wearing the bracelet. And it wasn't a deterrent to Joseph Whitlow, who simply cut off his bracelet before murdering his former girlfriend and killing himself in Texas.
You have to remember, these programs were never meant for violent offenders. And every time you put a violent offender on this program, or an abuser, domestic violence abuser on these programs, you're asking for troubles.
In the early days, home detention was used mostly in cases of misdemeanors, nonviolent felonies, and white-collar crimes. And in many communities, it's still used that way. But what most people don't know is that there are all sorts of dangerous people out there wearing the bracelet. People accused of violent felonies and awaiting trial, people on probation for committing violent crimes, and career criminals who have already served their time in prison and are now out on parole.
We have virtually every derivation of criminal that you can define being monitored on our systems today as we sit here. Every conceivable type of offender that you can imagine.
Murderers?
I'm sure.
Rapists?
I'm sure. Absolutely. Now the question is, those people are out after having served their full sentences. Would you like them out on a straight parole program?
What Hunter is saying is that 97% of all the people sent to prison eventually get out, released to the supervision of overworked parole departments, which may only be required to check up on them every couple of months. Hunter says the bracelet gives authorities one more tool to keep track of dangerous people.
We have to release them on some sort of a program. Do you release them absolutely free as you and I are free, or do you restrict their movements? Do you actually dictate some of the terms and conditions of their probation and parole?
The argument is this is better than nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
My only problem with that is the false sense of security that victims and members of society get as a result of the fact that they have this device on. People think that it somehow gives them a greater sense of safety, a greater degree of safety because the device is on the individual. And
because somebody's watching them and paying attention.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
You keep using the word incarceration to describe it. You're saying they're incarcerated in a...
in their homes.
They're incarcerated in their homes.
Right.
In fact, the home incarceration you talk about, they are free to leave that home and do whatever they want to do. Isn't it sort of an honor system, isn't it?
It is not an honor system, it's a dishonor system. Because in fact, as soon as they leave, the system of electronics will call the violation out to the authorities. And at that point then, you know exactly what you must do to apprehend the person, bring them back into the jurisdiction, if necessary, retry them, reconvict them, and put them back into a prison that's a much more secure setting for that particular offender.
Well, they can't go out and apprehend the person because they don't know where the person is. You know where they aren't. And they aren't in the house. That's all you know.
In fact, you can't even assume local authorities are going to respond to a violation right away. In most cases, they don't. And in some cases, it might take 2 or 3 days to respond. And by then, it may be too late. Take the case of Graylin Windbush, an extremely violent 20-year-old who was paroled from the California Youth Authority in December of 1995. At the start of the Christmas holiday weekend, BI Incorporated, which was monitoring his bracelet, received 2 electronic alerts. The first indicated that Windbush was almost 20 minutes late returning home. And about 2 hours later, the bracelet stopped transmitting altogether for a period of 4 days. Where was Graylin Windbush? According to his own confession, he was murdering 20-year-old Erica Beeson. When Oakland police arrived on the scene, this is what they found.
The victim had been bound, tied up. There was indication of that when we got there.
Stabbed?
Stabbed, yeah, and strangled was the final cause of death.
What was the motive?
The motive was robbery.
Now, you might expect that someone from the parole office of the California Youth Authority would have gone out to check on Windbush during the 4 days his transmitter had stopped working, since he was technically in violation of his parole. But in fact, there wasn't even anyone in the Oakland office to receive the fax that BI sent, let alone take any action. Francisco Alarcon is the director of the California Youth Authority.
Well, the way our program works is that we're to respond as soon as possible on the first available workday.
The first available workday?
Correct.
Are your offices manned 24 hours a day?
No, they're not.
So if a call comes in at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock after people have left the office on a Friday, nothing's going to happen until Monday?
Correct.
And if something happened over the Christmas holidays or something like that on a Friday, and it might be longer than 3 days? Might be 4 or 5 days.
That's correct, although that's obviously much more unusual because there aren't that many holidays that run through Tuesday.
Alarcon's own press release on the Beeson murder defended the use of the bracelet, saying the use of electronic monitoring allows a parole agent to act quickly if there are problems. I mean, it says here in plain English, act quickly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't necessarily assume that to mean the beginning of the next business day.
Well, that's your definition.
I mean, that could be 2, 3 days. That's not quickly.
Possibly, yeah.
Is it? Do you consider that quickly?
Well, it's not as quickly as I would like, obviously.
Norm Early knows it's not quickly and says no one is more familiar with the shortcomings of home detention than criminals.
The word travels very, very quickly within individual programs, how those programs are being monitored by the law enforcement agency, the criminal justice agency, and what they are or are not capable of doing or doing.
So they know it doesn't work?
Sure, the pipeline lets them know.
That's something Erica Beeson's mother, Melita, says she can't accept. She's suing both the California Youth Authority and BI Incorporated for not paying enough attention to the man accused of murdering her daughter.
If they had just even inquired into why he was 18 minutes late, if they had just made that attempt to find out why, maybe that would have kept him from doing it.
Who do you think is most responsible here?
If they are going to use these devices, then they should have a policy of monitoring them properly. I think that's the least you can expect.
R.W. Cooperman, you've been served.
What? Half? She gets half? I'll give her half.
Maybe we can work this out.
Brochures? Brochures? With pictures. Learn all about highly protected risk coverage.
Wausau?
Wausau.
What's that?
Business insurance.
To fully appreciate business insurance from Wausau,
Excuse me, my company's changing health plans.
you really have to be in business. Wausau. In business, our name draws a crowd.
Heartburn at this hour is a nightmare, but the minute I take Maalox, I know help is on the way.
1 minute Maalox. Clinical studies prove Maalox starts to work on stomach acid in about 1 minute, while Pepcid AC could take over 45 minutes. So count on 1 minute Maalox.
It's the greatest reunion in TV history. Bob Newhart and Judd Hirsch join the cast of Taxi, Newhart, and more in a show that's
freaky.
George and Leo, CBS Monday. She's broken a lot of rules.
You're fighting cancer, and you're doing whatever it takes.
But Wednesday...
What if it makes you feel better?
Murphy breaks them all. It's the funniest.
You brought pot! Get what are you doing with pot?
The most controversial Murphy yet.
Like this.
Well, for a second there, I thought you were Bob Marley.
All new Murphy, CBS Wednesday.
No one knows better than we do that no matter how fair, unbiased, and objective you think you are, there is always someone who thinks you aren't. Just ask Andy.
3 weeks ago, I made some remarks about prayer and promise keepers that brought a flood of mail. Most correspondents disagreed with what I said and disliked me for saying it. There were a lot, but fewer favorable letters. I don't think God is pleased with you right now. The only way I would return as a viewer is if you left the show and they renamed it 50 Minutes. You might make a phone call to Billy Graham and learn what Promise Keepers is all about. I don't know how Billy Graham feels about Promise Keepers. His organization raises more than $100 million a year, but already Promise Keepers is up around $90 million. This was the very first letter I got and one of the most welcome. You mirrored my sentiments perfectly. Having lived through the Korean War, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Civil Rights Revolution, I was relieved that the greatest threat you could see to our republic was the Promise Keepers. I love that letter. The country's awash with hypocrisy, with all society and government spewing piety and phony religiosity in every direction. Have you ever had a son healed of epilepsy as I have? This was through prayer, as the doctors could do no more for him. I made a special point of writing down the names of advertisers that played after your segment. I plan on choosing other than these companies when I purchase products. My husband rode from San Antonio to Washington with more than 1,500 members of the Christian Motorcycle Association. I'm sure this letter will never reach you personally. You old goat, you're as ignorant as now members. I'd hate to be in your shoes the moment you die. Ellen Murray, Grand Rapids. Thank you, Ellen. I wouldn't want you in there with me either. You have burst a beautiful bubble of mine. I thought you were the good guy you always seemed to be. Did it occur to you that hundreds of trees would have to be cut down to provide paper for the mail you must be receiving? This one is to the producer of 60 Minutes. You've had the bastard on far too long. Get rid of him. It's some country we got, isn't it? Many of the people who wrote criticizing me said they were praying for me, so we'll see how that works out.
Andy's not the only one around here who gets mail, and frankly, we've been remiss in letting so many weeks go by without sharing some of it with you. For instance, about our story on the couple who were not told by an adoption agency that their adopted son, who they lost, could have inherited serious mental disorders. A viewer asked, if birth parents have to take their lumps and make the best of whatever they get, why do adoptive parents feel that they have the prerogative to adopt, return, and or sue? They should be thankful for the good years they had. And this, I'm kind of the other side of the coin. That same prestigious adoption agency placed me in a family of deceitful, dishonest, uncaring lunatics. About Morley's piece poking fun at contemporary art, a viewer wrote, come on, you guys. 40 or 50 years ago, the same kind of contempt was being hurled at Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning. I may be old hat at 76, but I still recognize there's a lot going on among the young and resent that your only segments on art are put-downs. And finally, about Bob Simon's interview with a Palestinian terrorist who took credit for 3 suicide bombings, we got several letters in this vein. What is wrong with you people? Why do you provide free airtime for these murderers? If they want to spread their poison, let them buy time. We do not, as you know, sell time to terrorists or anyone else in the news, but we do sell stories to other television networks, and the first one who bought that one was Israeli television.
I'm Mike Wallace. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes. And now here's a look at what's coming up this week from CBS News.
On tomorrow's evening news, just imagine paying almost $1,200 a year to insure your car. That's the average in one state, and it's become the biggest political issue of the season, with candidates battling over what to do. What's behind your high auto rates, and what can be done? Tomorrow on CBS.
Ah, the information age, where the great minds of the world shape images of thought. Images that can be captured, managed, and distributed digitally to our eager colleagues anywhere in the world, so that every possible thought can be instantly shared. Or not. Image Anywhere from Canon, the new paradigm for the digital workplace.
Everywhere. Packages to every address in America. P.O. boxes, too. We deliver packages to more places than FedEx or UPS. The U.S. Postal Service can take your business around the world. We deliver packages to everyone, everywhere, every day.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to pay last respects to the Internet as we know it. Lucent brings new life to net. Less congestion, phone calls and faxes over net, and CD quality sound. Lucent Technologies. We make the things that make communications work.
I got my Harley for just $8.
I moved to LA for $12.
Get the lowest commissions possible with Ameritrade. Trade online for just $8. Touchtone trade for $12. Or live broker trade just $18, no matter how many shares you trade.
I checked into the Hilton for $18.
Plus, your first 5 trades are commission-free when you open an account. Call 1-800-592-7694 or visit our website. Ameritrade. Smartest way to trade, period.
Cosby busts a move with rap star Busta Rhymes. But can Busta handle special guest Debbie Allen on an all-new Cosby? Then Ray sets up a home office.
Going to work in my bathroom.
Will he like working at home?
I'm like Hugh Hefner, minus everything good about his life.
It's an all-new Everybody Loves Raymond right after Cosby, CBS Monday.
Scott Hamilton battled cancer and won. Now he's back, and the stars turn out to celebrate as James Seymour hosts an all-new special. Scott Hamilton back on the ice, CBS Wednesday.
How far will a reporter go?
Angels have just descended.
To prove angels are a hoax. William Devane joins an all-new Touched by an Angel next. Then, Jessica Fletcher is back.
It can't be. I'm afraid so.
In an all-new world premiere event.
You may be in danger. Wouldn't be the first time.
Angela Lansbury in a Murder, She Wrote movie, CBS tonight.
A family is brutally murdered.
We gotta move on this.
And when a man of the cloth stands between the police and the witnesses...
You know anything?
No, I don't.
All hell is going to break loose.
Well, you want to reign of terror out there?
Don't miss an explosive all-new Brooklyn South. CBS Monday.
Experience CBS News.
Police say their daughter committed suicide. She claims her son-in-law is the killer. You decide who killed Jane. 48 Hours Thursday.